How are you doing today? Thank you for choosing my video lecture to enhance your knowledge in financial accounting. This lecture is about rules of debit and credit, and I am Professor Ramkrishna. I am a professor of finance and accounting in one of the leading business schools in India. Through different platforms like YouTube and website, and through online teaching portals like Udemy, I share my knowledge in financial accounting with the students and practitioners like you across the world. For a beginners of accounting, the debit and credit is really a rocket science. They are not able to understand it properly and thinks that all accounting is completely revolves around debit and credit, and mastering it is a very difficult one. But the idea of a debit and credit in accounting is very simple and easy to understand and easy to grasp and practice also. So in this lecture, what I do is I try to simplify the concept of a debit and credit and how it is related to our accounting equation and how each account affects with the debit and credit. So shall we move on? In accounting, the words debit and credit has a very simple meaning. On one side, when you say the debit, this is onto your left hand side. And we are talking about a credit, this is say that on your right hand side. So what is it we are talking about? Left hand and right hand is to know, to understand whether we are receiving or paying, or whether the business is getting benefit or it is losing a money. For that purpose, we divide all our transactions or record them into a T form. So we call this as a T account. So this is your center line and this is onto your debit side, that is left hand side, and this is on your credit side. So that is on your right hand side. Just you look at you are standing in center. Let us say you are standing here in center. So your right hand side is a credit and your left hand side is your debit. Now how is that we are going to use this is we link this with, that is the debit and credit with three different classification of accounts or items that we have. So one is we have assets, then you have a liabilities. This is our accounting equation also. Assets equals to liabilities plus owner's equity. So our accounting definition, assets equals to liabilities plus owner's equity. So the same one. So based on using this three different items of our classification of our accounting items, we use the rule of a debit and credit. So when you're talking about assets, so we write an assets account, any asset account, and onto your debit side and onto your credit side. Whenever there is an increase in your assets, we debit this. So we add this side or we put this in a left hand side. Whenever there is an increase in your assets, increase in your assets, we write on a debit side. And whenever there is a decrease in your assets, we write them on the credit side. We record them on a credit side. And just mirror effect of this is your liabilities and owner's equity. So here also the same debit and credit. Now I am saying that mirror effect. Now when assets increase, we are debiting it. Now when liabilities increase, we credit it. When liabilities increase, we credit it, and when liabilities decrease, we debit it. We debit it in the sense we write onto the debit side. No debit, nothing. We write on your debit side. As this is onto the equal to right side of the equal sign, so this will also have the same effect. So debit and credit. So if the owner's equity increases, if owner's equity increases, we write it on a right hand side, that is a credit side. And when owner's equity decreases, we write it on a credit side. When it decreases, we write it on a credit side. In extension to this, we also have an expanded accounting equation. So our expanded accounting equation is assets equals to liabilities plus owner's equity plus retained earnings. So how is that we are going to get this retained earnings is revenue minus expenses minus dividend if any paid. So you have a retained earnings. That means the revenue and expenditure will affect your equity. So we, in our extended equation also, we go with the same. So when you have a revenue, what is that we are saying, that when revenue increases, we credit it, because this is ultimately affecting your owner's equity. So owner's equity is credited, so we write on a credit side. So when revenue decreases, we'll write it on a debit side. Or other way, let us say you have a expenses. So when there is an increase in your expenses, that is if you are spending more money, we'll write onto a debit side, because this increase in expenses will decrease your owner's equity. Now we take a simple example. Let us say you started a business. Before starting any business, your assets will be 0. Let us say you take an assets account, any asset account. So your assets account, so have a no balance on its debit side nor on a credit side, and your owner's equity also nothing is there on its account, debit side or a credit side, that is on the right hand side or left hand side, nothing is there. Assuming that you invested rupees 25 lakhs in the business. So you are investing your money. Now what will happen to your owner's equity? It will increase or decrease. Owner's equity, now it is a 0. So from 0, now it is going to 25 lakhs. It increases. So when owner's equity increases, which side we will write? We will write this onto the right hand side, that is a credit side. So we'll write 25 lakhs here. Now, so this owner's equity, that is 25 lakhs, we bought in the form of a cash. Now cash is an asset. Now what happened to your cash? It increased or decreased? So cash increased. So when cash increases, what is that we do? We write it on a left hand side. So here we write as a 25 lakhs. So debit is, if there is an increase, we will write here, decrease onto a right hand side. Now if you look at these two, what will happen? Your assets equals to liabilities plus owner's equity. So assets is 25 lakhs. There is no liability, plus this is 25 lakhs. And your debit equals to credit, in the sense the amount, the total amount of a business, whatever it is there, onto the debit side, onto the credit side, left hand side and right hand side, this will have a same effect. So this is again a double entry of a bookkeeping effect. So two transactions with this. One is your debit transaction and another one is your credit. In this one item is debited, another item is credited. Similarly, for every activity we will have a same. Like let us say you paid cash of rupees 20,000 to buy table. So here what happening, this transaction has got how many accounts? Two items or two accounts. One is a cash, which is an asset, and second one is a table, which is also an asset. So we'll write a debit side, credit side, debit and credit. Now look at, when you are making a cash payment, what paid cash of rupees 20 lakhs, what happens to your cash? The cash is decreased by 20,000. So when a decrease of asset, which side we will write? Left hand side or a right hand side? Onto the right hand side, that is the credit side. So for which we are paying? Furniture, and amount 20,000 here. On the other side, what will happen to your table account or your furniture? So furniture, there is an increase in asset, increase in a value of a asset. So when you have an increase in a value of asset, we will write onto the left hand side, that is the debit side. So here cash and 20,000. Hope you are getting my point. Simply you have to see that whether asset, liability or owner's equity or revenue or expenditure, whether they are increasing or decreasing. If asset increases, you have to write on a debit side. If asset decreases, you have to write on a credit side. Now we look at a liability. Say suppose you borrowed loan from a bank for rupees 10 lakhs. So this transaction has got how many accounts? Two accounts. One is a loan. So this is the liability. Because you owe it, you have to repay to the bank. Then what is it you received? In the form of a cash. So cash is an asset because you own it now. So you have a two accounts. One is a liability account, that is a loan account. And here you have a debit side and credit side. What happened to the loan account? The loan increased. So the liability increased. So when liability increases, we'll write on a credit side. When liability decreases, we write on a debit side or left hand side. Similarly, cash, left hand side and right hand side. When asset increases, we write on left hand side. When asset decreases, we write on a right hand side. So here what happened? Our asset, that is a cash, increased by 10 lakhs. So here what is that we do is we mentioned as a loan and the amount here. Now what happened to our liability? Liability is also increased. So you have a cash increase, we write it on a credit side. So 10 lakhs. Now if you see, you have a one debit account or one account is credited. Then you have a balance of these two. So at the initial stage, this appears to be little confusing and all, but keep on practicing this so that you will be able to appreciate the basic rules of accounting. That is, which account is to be debited, that is written on a left hand side, which to be written on a right hand side. In simple terms, we have a rules of a debit and credit like this. So when there is an increase in asset, we debit. When there is a decrease in asset, we credit it. That is, here is you have a T account. This is your left hand side and this is your right hand side. Here also same, left and right. So debit and credit simply reflects your left side and right side. So whether you have to write it onto the right side or left side. So to get familiar with this, what all the things that you need to know is this, that is, which are your assets, which are your liabilities, what is your capital or owner's equity, and your revenue and your losses. So once you are familiar with this, then simply remembering this one, assets, that is increase in assets on a debit side and decrease in assets on a credit side. So this is sufficient because the other side of equal to is opposite of this. So increase is credited and decrease is debited for all these four items. So you can see here, this is on the left hand side, decrease. Here also if you see, there is an increase and decrease, expenses increase. So, and which affects your owner's equity. All right, that means you have a debit here, there is an increase of a debit here and decrease here. So this is onto your debit side, left side and right side, left side and right side. So practice this using these rules of debit and identifying the account. So in my next lecture, what is it I'm going to do is, I'm going to, I created a worksheet where we identify the transaction, different accounts involved, classification of account, and which account to be debited and which account to be credited. So this will give you a thorough practice of rules of a debit and credit. Don't miss watching my next lecture on rules of debit and credit activity. I'm doing this activity with the help of a worksheet. Thank you. Thank you for your time and patience.